evening, everybody, and welcome back to the World Elite Championship here at the Grand Prestige League. And it is time for round number 6, a brand new venue with a lot of potential, lots of possibilities, and complete unknowns as we head into the Canadian Grand Prix for the first time ever in the Grand Prestige League history. So this should be a really fun one. It's a brand new circuit, a track that we have never visited before. Of course, it is one of the 2 brand new racing tracks added to Gran Turismo 7, and it is known as the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. So it should be very interesting. I'm looking forward to it. Could be a lot of fun here. It'll be myself, Patrick Coleman, aka Ruckus, and I will be one of your hosts and commentators for today's action. And alongside me, as always, it is B23. How you doing today, mate? And what are your feelings about this track?
Doing pretty well so far, and honestly, I have absolutely no idea what to expect here. I've done minimal racing on this track. Of course, it is brand new, but even compared to a lot of other people, I've had very minimal practice running here, so I don't even know what to expect myself as far as how the tires are going to behave, like the type of balance the track requires from the aero package perspective, other things like that. But I do know that a lot of drivers are excited to race here. It is a kind of thin track, and despite that, lots of good racing opportunities. So I do think we're going to see some kind of continued drawn-out battles where it goes through a large portion of the lap, switchbacks and giving back the positions back and forth and stuff like that is what I'm looking forward to seeing. And a really good view as well. So I've liked that the 2 latest tracks that they've added to the game are really nice to look at from a viewer's perspective, which is going to be most of us today.
Yeah, I mean, the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, it's the host of the Canadian Grand Prix in the real world. It is this track in Montreal, Canada, has been around for a not as long as some of the other tracks we have visited, like Spa and like Watkins Glen. Those tracks have been around for a really long time, so not quite as long, but it's been a very historic track. It's been on the F1 calendar for several decades now, but in Gran Turismo it is brand new, so it'll be interesting because it was a track that has been expected into this game for quite some time now. CVG is a popular track, and it's an interesting one because it's a very tight track. It is a street circuit, very similar to Formula One's Albert Park. So it is a very interesting track. And we do have some new drivers on the grid today, and some drivers now competing for different teams. So it can be a very interesting day today. But there's a lot of unknowns here ready to go. So just taking a look at the drivers and what teams they are representing here today. It is going to be Adaptive Inc., aka Viper, Foxhound Speed Group. Here's some of the new ones today. It is ASJ and Tallman, actually. Both of these drivers are now racing under the High Caliber banner. So that should be a very interesting one. We're used to seeing them in the Porsche liveries, so interesting change here. MayJP still running EXO. Nuko still running Toyota, no team changes there. Another new driver I do want to highlight is Dylan Vastenberg. He is a new driver. He is from Nova Motor Esports. Today racing as the sole LFO driver on the grid. And then JD Killswitch running a project. He's racing for Project Zero. Whiplash racing here for Foxhound Speed Group. And King still racing for Spectre Racing Acura. And Exo Rogue's racing for Toyota, and Exo Illusion racing for Exodus Motorsports. So 12 drivers here today, a brand new circuit, and a track that a lot of the drivers are kind of figuring out for the first time. If you played the F1 games, you may be familiar with this track, but outside of F1, there's a lot of people who don't even know this track exists.
Yeah, and so not only a shuffling of the grid, but yeah, just the vast difference in experience levels on this track is going to make a difference, even though everyone should be kind of lacking that experience because it's new to this game. It is a track that exists and has been around in a lot of different titles and simulators for a very long time, so some of these people who do have a bit more versatile experience in their sim racing careers might know the ins and outs of this track just a bit more, and even if it is a different simulator with different physics, all of that track time does add up, and to your muscle memory and the familiarity around these corners, it is going to make a difference around here, I think, today.
Yeah, so this circuit has remained relatively unchanged since it opened in 1978. A few different corner changes, some parts of the track have straightened out a bit. This track used to have 19 corners, and now it is down to just 14. Some parts really did get straightened out. The more modern iteration of this track has kind of surfaced around 1996, where there used to be a chicane in between turns, or what is now turns 11 and 13. There used to be a couple of chicanes there, and now this massive straight down the edge, which is known as the Casino Straight, is now just pretty much a straight line all the way to the chicane. And this is going to be a very, very interesting one. I've been looking forward to this track all weekend long, or all season long, really. So it should be a really, really interesting one. Overtaking here is going to be really tricky. It is a very narrow track for street circuits. So, and a lot of drivers are kind of still trying to get their grips with this track. Because, like we were talking about earlier, some drivers may have experience from other simulators, but for the most part, in recent times at least, if you haven't played an F1 game, then there's a good chance that you are very unfamiliar with this track. Now, I know mods exist that have placed this track in other simulators, like R Factor 2. I don't know if this track is in iRacing. I don't recall it being there, but I know there's mods for Assetto Corsa to put CVG in as well. So, one of the new tracks added to the GPL calendar for the first time, and honestly, I'm looking forward to it. It should be a very good day here.
Absolutely, and just to let everyone know, there is a driver missing on the grid that is a notable missing one, being Alex from EXO. He reported that he has a throttle pedal issue on his sim rig that he discovered shortly before the race, so that is actually what kind of facilitated the entire domino effect of the grid. Usually that is kind of what happens too when we see these large shufflings of drivers moving around in different teams on the grid. Usually it all stems from one unexpected driver change, then a big domino effect, much like the real life silly seasons that we often see in F1.
Yeah, so it'll be a curious case to kind of see just what happens here. Yeah, it's a brand new track, like we kind of mentioned. Qualifying isn't quite underway yet, so drivers are still kind of trying to practice here as we go through. It is going to be 58 laps around the circuit, and this is going to be a fun one. We should get started here very, very, very soon, but in the meantime, this track is going to be a lot of fun to watch. It's going to be probably one of our quintessential street circuits coming on, because to me this kind of fills that void that Tokyo Expressway left when it was taken off the counter at the end of last season, replaced with CVG. The tracks do, even though it feels weird to call it a street circuit, right? Just because, I mean,
yeah,
visually
bit of a hybrid.
it looks more, it's more of a parkland circuit, similar to what Formula One's Albert Park is like, where it uses a lot of like surrounding park area to actually become a racetrack. So not quite your traditional street circuit, so it's not like an actual true street circuit for, like, say Tokyo Expressway is. or some of these street circuits from the older Gran Turismo games, particularly like GT4 Seattle, Seoul, a bunch of other tracks there that were just actual street circuits. But, and it's not your Monaco either, but here we go. It is time to get started for qualifying here, and we should be getting ready to head out here very, very shortly.
Alright, and in the meantime I do got a link for the live stream here posted to our IG, so if you're not following us over there on Instagram, that is at Grand Prestige League, you will be able to keep up on all of the ongoings-ons here in the league, whether it be race briefings, driver standings, constructor standings. All the info you would ever need is over there, so definitely pop over there, and if you haven't done so already, feel free to give a like and subscribe to this here channel as well, so you don't miss any of the racing action for the rest of the season. As we're only halfway through this season, there's a lot of racing left to go, as they are now shuffling out of the pits.
Yeah, so qualifying isn't quite underway yet. Just drivers really just trying to get a feel for this track. It's going to be a tough one here on the day, but it should be a lot of fun to kind of watch and see as it kind of develops, as drivers get more comfortable with it. So 30 seconds till the start of qualifying, and it'll be interesting because wind might actually be a factor, unlike last week in Monza, where wind was really not a factor at all when we were back in Italy. So now that we're here in Canada, it should be a fun time.
Yeah, I'm thinking so as well, and I'm actually unfamiliar as well with the way that wind interacts with the car on this track, and like kind of what directions are the favorable ones, because as we know with a track like Spa-Francorchamps, the wind will highly determine the lap times and comfort levels of the drivers going around that lap, because most of the kind of critical high aero dependent corners are all in the same direction, and it does kind of look like that's going to be the case here as well. Just looking at the track map in the top right corner, most of the critical corners are flowing in the same direction, and currently the wind is a headwind in that direction, so these guys will be loaded up with extra downforce, should be feeling really confident going into these corners for this qualifying session.
I'm sorry. That is really unfortunate there, J-Mac, in the YouTube chat saying he couldn't keep the eyes off the stream and then his son ate dog food, apparently.
Oh.
So,
and I know who that is, and that is something his son would do. So shout out to, I'm not sure if it was, which one it was, but shout out to J-Mac and his kids in the chat there. A very good fan of the league as well, always being supportive to our drivers here. And doing also so as a non-racer, so it's always good to see non-racers get involved into the community and enjoy what we're doing here.
I know he's actually competed in Formula GT before, so maybe at some point we'll see him make his way over to GPL. We know he's competed in that series a couple of times. There's a few drivers that used to compete in Formula GT. A lot of them actually did compete in both series. And the thing about these drivers is that a lot of them do compete in multiple different series. I think, didn't DRL just recently wrap up their season not too long ago? And actually,
yes, they did.
I think one driver on our grid recently just became a champion with DRL, and I believe that was May JP, if I'm not mistaken.
I'm not exactly sure how that was determined, to be honest, because he was fourth in the standings, but he decided that to add recognition to some other drivers, that he would split up the one grid into multiple classes and give some titles out that way. And Illusion as well, winning the main drivers championship over there as well. So multiple people getting recognition in DRL is good to see, because there was a lot of really, really good driving over there this season. A lot of drivers that we have on the grid here today, including May JP, as you mentioned, Illusion, ASJ, King No Skill, and if I am missing anyone who was on both grids, I apologize. Those who I remember off the top of my head. Oh yeah, I will say though too, funny story, because I was actually just thinking, Wait, did J-Mac do FGT? There are two J-Macs, I will say. So this J-Mac in the chat now is not the FGT J-Mac, but there was a time in, because this J-Mac that's in the YouTube chat here is in the EXO Discord server. There was a time where somebody thought that they were the same guy and that he was leaking information from EXO to other people, but it's not the same guy, so it turns out that was not happening. So it wasn't the first time that he got mixed up either.
We do love seeing we do love seeing just some shenanigans of that sort every so often. I did talk to J-Mac, not super duper recently, but not super long ago either. And he was doing Porsche Cup stuff last time I talked to him, so. And so here's an interesting thing about just some of the drivers here, right, is a lot of them do compete in different series, sometimes even under completely different teams. Now, an extra bit of backstory here behind this driver currently on your screen, the only LFO driver here on the day, Dylan Vastenberg. He competes for a team that is pretty well known in the Gran Turismo space, known as Nova. They mostly compete in a lot of endurance racing stuff. Also, I think they compete in iRacing as well, kind of similar to 9 Pegasus Panthera. So it should be noted that we may see them next season. Not too sure. Nothing confirmed, obviously. I mean, it's crazy that we're already kind of thinking about next season while we already have a banger of a season coming on here. But it is the first third of qualifying, so a lot of drivers are really just trying to make heads or tails of the circuit. Nuko does get pole position so far with a time of a 1:16.5. So 1:16.597. Viper P2, Lugia P3, Whiplash P4. ASJ though up into P5 P5, running in the high caliber machine, so it's his first time driving as a member of high caliber instead of Project Zero. So very interesting stuff. It's kind of like an interesting fusion, because we don't have the Project Zero Porsches on grid today. We have the original Project Zero team on track today.
Yeah.
So
Viper on pace.
Very interesting stuff here as Viper jumps to the top of the times.
Yeah, and I will say too, Nuko, a good lap to start the session, being the original benchmark of everyone else so far, up until just now, where Viper put in a really good looking lap. Not sure exactly what the kind of target times they should be going for right now, but I will say that Nuko was mentioning that he was struggling with this track. I'm not sure exactly if it was the track or his car setup that he wasn't quite agreeing with, but you know, to set the benchmark time right out the gates, not a bad look, especially if you feel like you're struggling. That ought to put some confidence back in him.
Confidence is going to be really key, especially around this track, because it's a brand new track, and you know, it's a really narrow track. The margin of error is pretty slim. There's a few areas of the track with a good amount of runoff, but not a ton. So there's a lot of times if you go deep, you're pretty much gonna potentially end straight up into a wall. Like the Wall of Champions and that hairpin right before it, that one is a really good indicator of, well, there's a little bit of runoff right there. There's also a really tough chicane that's at the beginning of Sector 2 that also has actually both of the chicanes in Sector 2 have some runoff, but otherwise it's just straight grass and concrete wall. So, and the pit lane is also really interesting as well, just on exit, because as we're seeing from King now, he just makes his way through the S, but the pit lane actually kind of cuts right through the S and actually puts him on a bit of a good line for overtaking on pit exit, so we might see some drama on pit exit here today.
Oh yeah, and that is a good point too, and especially on the confidence front, just the nature of some of these corners where risk management is going to be very, very on display. We're going to see who's really feeling themselves today, because you got these very large abrasive curbs that when you choose to take as much of your car over that curb as you can to try to cut just that little bit more of the track distance. And you're disrupting your car when you take these kind of elevated curbs and you're kind of just flying through the air, hoping that when you land, your car grips up quick enough, because you're heading straight for a concrete wall coming straight off of these curbs too. So and in a lot of the areas where there is a little bit more space, there's only just enough grass to spin you out. There's nothing going to save you on this track. The walls are right there too. So if we do see a little bit of contact between drivers too, the likelihood that it's going to result in damage is much higher on this track.
Exactly, and especially with WEC having heavy damage, so pretty much if you get damage, you gotta just drive straight to the pits to get it fixed. Really isn't, it's gonna be a bit tough to navigate as we see Rogue there getting past one of the EXO cars. He's gonna get past May JP there as he now goes and makes his way down to Casino Straight. And here's an interesting thing, right? Because I know, like, just looking at this, you wouldn't really think of it being known as the Casino Straight, but I mean, you are kind of essentially rolling the dice if you try to make an overtake on that straight. So I can kind of see it, kind of don't, kind of see the vision, but I mean, this is gonna be, and I mean, if we get more like actual like F1 circuits like this, then the GPL calendar is gonna be ludicrous in seasons to come. Like Coda has been in the files, the Circuit of the Americas has been very much in the files for a very long time, and here's the interesting thing that we can just talk about with tracks, right? The beauty of the GPL calendar with these two new tracks, it gives every league, really, not just us here at the Grand Prestige League, but it gives every league more freedom to kind of pick and choose new tracks and make the calendar like different every single season. Like, I mean, these tracks could be on this calendar for one season, and then they could be gone the next, you know, kind of like what we saw with Tokyo Expressway. That track showed up for a season and then just kind of disappeared the next one. And then, I mean, we could see either CVG or Yas Marina now return next season. You know, they're the two new tracks on the calendar. First time for those two. And I mean, there's other tracks that, you know, may also never end up on any calendar. Like, you know, and I know you guys are probably going to have a counter for how many times I mentioned this track, but Nordwan's not going to be on the counter more than likely, unless unless Lucian actually goes insane when it comes to designing the calendar for Season 8. But you also got to think there's a lot of other... Oh, and Rogue's into the wall. With first up, potentially many contacts with that wall throughout the day for all of our drivers here. But yeah, I mean, if they keep adding new tracks like this and they don't make us wait like a year and a half to actually get a new track, then the counters can be really, really fun for seasons to come. So just another reason for you guys to go ahead and drop a like and subscribe. Turn on those post notifications if you haven't already. We got a lot of XL racing coming up for the rest of Season 7. And then the upcoming Community Series, which I have so much info about it that I can't even tell you. I'm kidding, I don't have any info about what the next Community Series is yet. We're not that far into the season yet, but yeah, you guys definitely don't want to miss anything.
I think GPL has potentially unlocked a new drinking game with the Iger Nordwan mentions. We could keep a tally going throughout the season. Although you do that game a whole season, you will become an alcoholic.
I feel like now, kids, don't drink alcohol unless you're legally old enough to in your country or state. I'm just gonna put that out there as a disclaimer. We do not encourage drinking while it's not legal.
Or yeah, drinking or sim driving while drinking as well. Yeah,
we don't do that. If you're drinking anything, drink some water or some W.GG. Remember, promo code GPL at checkout. But
hey, that was a good one.
I'm getting better at these little ad read things, but as drivers are actually getting better at learning the track. So right now, we might see a driver get close to breaking into the 115s here, but it's really only about 3 drivers in the 116s even.
Yeah, and it does seem like a 15 would be the mythical number to hit. That would be a really strong kind of benchmark for these guys to chase after.
And Schulte, who I believe it is actually his home track here, says this is, quote, a hard-at track. And yes it is. It's a very tough track. And I mean, it's got a lot of deceptive braking zones as well, so some braking zones really just will catch you off guard without any care in the world. And that is something that I've even noticed, that it's like when I was driving this track when this first came out, when I was doing the Super Formula event that's part of like the career mode or the single player mode, there's some really tough braking zones on this track where you brake later, that you would brake earlier than you think you would need to, and you just gotta bite the dust from it.
Yeah, definitely. And it's also the case that, especially being unfamiliar with the track like myself, is that when the small amount of time that I have spent here, a lot of the track as you're going through it looks kind of samey. Whereas most tracks as you're going through, the environment around you from the driver's perspective is kind of constantly changing, so you know exactly where you are relative to everything around you. But on this track, it's a lot of concrete walls, and you're seeing a lot of very similar looking stuff throughout the lap. So it can be kind of hard to just visually know as you're approaching the corner, okay, this is the one where I brake a little early, this is the one where I brake a little later, or kind of carry the braking in. The braking technique into all these corners are so different, but the approach looks pretty similar. So that's why practice matters a lot for these guys. Really committing this track layout to muscle memory, very important, as I see some arrows on the track map
spinning
around.
Just straight bit the wall there.
That must have been it.
Yeah, so it's going to be tough to... I mean, there's a lot of drivers that are going to struggle with this track. It's a new track, so we can see the order switch up quite a bit. And, I mean, sometimes some drivers didn't, like you said, some drivers didn't get a lot of practice coming into this kind of last-minute ordeals and such. But at the end of the day, we're here to have fun. And also, this is a... I know we've said this a lot already, but this is
and there goes Whiteout.
Yeah, Whiteout to pole, almost getting on 115, but this is a very tough track, so... I mean, once this track gets on the counter a few more times, drivers will get more used to it. But yeah, this is definitely one of those tracks where if you didn't practice a lot, then it's going to be a tricky one, especially... Because, like, I don't know, it hasn't really been on a lot of... It's a new track, so there's not a lot of leagues that will have run this track yet. Even though it's been in the game for about 6 months now. CVG, and, I mean... Yas Marina is a bit of more of a, like an endurance type track, more people running for endurance, but CVG is almost like an F1 exclusive type track. They don't really run many other events around here. I mean, IRL there's Porsche Cup, but I know they're bringing Formula 2 and I think just Formula 2 there in the real world coming up, and it's actually costing with the Indy 500. Which has caused some drama, but it is the end of qualifying here at CVG. Whiteout on pole position, Duco not quite there, and then Viper P3, Illusion P4, King P5, Whiplash P6. That's a bit of a low one there for Whiplash. ASJ P7, Major P13 or P8. If there's a P13 out 12 driver, that'd be a bit concerned. Rogue P9, Tallman P10. Killswitch P11 and Vestenberg P12. So,
to be fair, his name does say Major P13, so that makes sense.
He may be P13, but we're just going to run through our qualifying times again. 25 hundredths of a second separating Whiteout and Nuka, and then it is Adaptive Inc., Illusion, and then King, Whiplash, ASJ, and then it is Major AP ready to go top 8, then it is Rogue, Tallman, Killswitch, and Vastenberg riding out the field. Now, I will say, it's a tough one. The wind is already starting to play a factor here. Like, I feel like wind has been like the #1 adversary for a lot of drivers this season. It's just been the absolutely brutal wind. So,
yeah,
that's going to be pretty much the summary of how today is going to go. The wind is going to be absolutely gnarly around the circuit. So we're going to go to reset the grid, and then it'll be race time here for 58 laps around CVG. But before then, I think we're gonna probably. I know we saw the first red flag of the season in Monza last week, which I know was a controversial red flag. I mean, both spectators and drivers weren't exactly the happiest about that red flag, but I feel like we might see a red flag here today as well, just because, I mean, this will be the first time a lot of these guys are actually racing on this track. Trying to get a good qualifying time on this track is already tough enough, and then you throw in the shenanigans of you got 12 drivers trying to go into the same corner. You know, it's a sharp turn one as well, so I think a red flag is very much possible, but hopefully not. I think it is going to happen, but I'm just going to pray that it's like a reverse commentator's curse.
Yeah, well, and I mean, like, with the rule of just likelihoods and odds and stuff, the fact that we haven't seen one thus far this season almost means that, like, we're overdue for one now, so I would be more shocked if we continued to not have one. And like the point of not knowing the track very well with these guys, I mean, these guys are skilled enough that they can learn the track, you know, within time to be prepared to do a race distance on it. So they know the track in that sense. But there's really, really levels to knowing a track. Like, if we were at Spa, everybody has driven Spa so many hours. They can do it literally in their sleep, literally drive the whole track with their eyes closed. And it's pure muscle memory and unconscious driving. But with a track like this, even when it seems like, okay, these guys are pretty familiar with the track, they're racing really well and on the limit, there is a big difference in the amount of focus that you have to dedicate to making it through the lap over and over and over again. And when you start to drive with other cars and then have to manage your car through a whole stint, and now you're considering all these other factors that are taking some of that focus off of the driving, you're going wheel to wheel with another car into a corner, a lot of the actual track knowledge just goes away and it falls back to your muscle memory. And a lot of these guys have very different levels of that built up, as we've mentioned. So I do think that that is also going to increase the likelihood that we see going into a turn one red flag here. Also, just because on the first lap, because they're not starting the lap with their full momentum, they're starting from a dead stop, the braking point only on that first lap is different to every single other lap, and a lot of people don't practice where the turn one braking point is from a dead stop. And that's usually why we see red flags to begin with on any circuit. And so I think with all those factors combined, that's what's going to cause it if we see one today.
Yeah, exactly, because I mean, you know, trying to get a rhythm for this track, it's easy to kind of lap around the track when you're by yourself, but when you have a bunch of other cars around you, it's a different ball game. And also with this track, and here's the thing too, right? Spa's probably been on every single sim racing league calendar out there. Actually, correction, I did commentate for a league a while back that actually did not have Spa on the calendar, and it was an F1 league of all things too. They just did not have Spa on the calendar for some reason. Bit of a weird call there. But I mean, like you said, Spa, Monza, those tracks are practically on every calendar out there, especially for Gran Turismo, because with those tracks, right, they're extremely popular for a multitude of different reasons. I mean, Spa and Monza, they're used for endurance, GT racing, touring car racing, super formula, retro formula like the F3500s and the F1500s. Also, I don't know if anyone has done this championship yet, but they're like, I'm sure people probably try to do some kind of retro F1 championship with the Honda RA272, which is a really fun car to drive, by the way. If you have not driven the 1965 Honda RA272, it is a beautiful Formula 1 car to drive. I love it. It's so much fun. I honestly think we should.
The bathtub.
It's not super expensive either, and Legendary, I think it's only like 1.2 million, which, I mean, you can get that pretty quickly. just from doing the Le Mans 30-minute race twice.
Well,
But,
especially compared to the other historical legendary racing cars that they have, it's a bargain.
It is, and it's honestly like, I know everybody loves the MP44 Ayrton Senna's McLaren, but like, it's I honestly like the RA more than the McLaren, to be honest. It's different, you know. It's a different style of car. It just feels a lot of fun to drive. But back to my original point before I went on a historical car tangent. Spa and Monza are two tracks that are always on almost every calendar because they are used for so many different types of racing. Yas Marina is starting to get to that point too now, even though it is a new track. It's been in the game just as long as CVG because they're both added in that Spec 3 update. But with that being said, CVG is not one of those tracks that's used in a wide array of different series types, right? Maybe in my season people use it for GT, but nobody really uses it for like a multi-class endurance race, just because it's so narrow, right? And you don't really have a lot of options to pass, as cool as it would be. And I think this track could do it, but it's a bit tough to do an endurance race on like a street circuit. I mean, I know they got, you know, the Macau Grand Prix, and Le Mans is technically a street circuit, which that just sounds criminal to say that Le Sarthe is a street circuit, but it is, you know. Hate to break it to y'all, but that also doesn't leave a lot of room for these tracks to really be used, because I know some of these drivers, they do racing on iRacing, Le Mans Ultimate, ACC, other platforms. Not a lot of platforms have CVG compared to Spa and Monza.
Absolutely. And it does look like these drivers are giving the R in the driver chat here to indicate that they are ready, but still no race start just quite yet. Expecting we'll see that here within a minute or so. It did look like a lot of drivers, especially the Acura team, were taking advantage of doing some practice starts here ahead of the start of the race. And it looks like a handful of drivers getting benefits out of that. We see a lot of people just doing some little practice battles in the meantime. Quite a bit of action going on, actually. Oh, and a big crash! Holy hell, what the...
I saw that.
Oh my god. So, mate, yeah. And on that note, it looks like we might start racing from there, which is probably good. Okay, so it looks like I'll be the one to determine that red flag. And, yeah, good to see a little action just before the race. And another friggin' ASJ straight into the wall. I think they're partly messing around at this point. I don't exactly...
Well, I think it's
know
Fast
what
and Furious.
MJP means, but definitely a reference to last week's red flag.
I think it's, and also specifically telling Vastenberg to no overtake until lap 2. It is, I believe it's his debut here this season, so I think it's at least his in-season debut. And I know, talking to him a little bit, that it's been a minute since he's been in a Super Formula series. So, I mean, it's gonna take time to adjust, especially if you've been out of the driver's seat for a while. But also, like, you picked one of the toughest tracks to make a comeback to, but just because you start towards the back doesn't mean you'll end back there. Same for starting in the front. You can start in the front, but you can very easily find yourself way to the back. But we're gonna find ourselves here at the start line for the first ever Grand Prestige League Canadian Grand Prix. And we're racing A. It is down to the first turn, and we'll see who can go in and get this. Some jockeying for position already. King did not have the launch he wanted. Oh, we see one of the high calibers getting a little wobbly. That is ASJ getting a tad bit slippery there on corner exit. He'll lose a few spots. BJP up some positions as well. And Vastenberg does make up a spot here. He's going to try. Oh, he gets a little slippery there. The Dutch driver trying to go ahead and find his footing here as we come to one of
King
the
on Viper.
many hard braking zones here, but we have some good battles here. We got battles everywhere, really. King and Viper, like you mentioned.
Oh, AJP on Whiplash, too, just
yeah,
behind.
I was just about to mention that one. So, both of the Fox out speed group drivers are fighting. AJP getting forced into the runoff there. I wonder if he'll get hit with a half second there for that. I don't think he will. Vastenberg's made up several positions. It's going to be almost 3 wide here coming into the hairpin. Tallman's going to be the latest on the brakes. He'll come out ahead of that battle. Vastenberg lightly graces the wall. He is still up in the P10, but just take a look at the rest of the field. We are making our way down the casino straight for the first time into that chicane. It's very easy to take some penalties coming through that chicane. And it's going to be a battle here for P10 as Vastenberg and Rogue are going to try to duel it up to turn 1. Going to make their way through the S's. Vastenberg does have the inside line. He's going to go for it. The inside becomes the outside. Rogue holds on to that P10 for now. But Vastenberg is going to be very quick on the retake. Overtake will be enabled now, so you can use overtake if you need it. Oh, Rogue goes off the track there in battling with Vastenberg. So that may be a penalty? I don't know. I don't think Rogue might have got away with that one, but still some good brawls happening all throughout. Whiteout still leads from Nuco to Illusion. And those are your top 4 as well, with Viper kind of right there in the mix. He's chasing down Illusion to try to get a podium here at the first ever Canadian Grand Prix here at the Great Prestige League. King makes a dive. He'll go late on the brakes. A little bit of grass being touched there by Viper. So these drivers are really trying to jockey for position here. But the field is starting to spread out a bit here, B23. The question is, though, what is the strategy going to be like? Because I'm thinking, I don't think we're going to see the hards. And I don't think tire degradation is going to be too much of an issue as Viper's going to get the move done on Illusion. And that is P3 for the Maltese driver.
Oh, and there's contact, big contact in the back of the grid there between JD Killswitch and Rogue. And it did look like as JD Killswitch was trying to get into that braking zone, Rogue trying to jump into the pits. And it's a very fast pit entry lane. People basically dive full speed into there and made contact with JD Killswitch, whose car is now mangled, and he's likely going to have to pit on the following lap here. But as far as strategy goes, so far on this opening lap, we're seeing every single driver on the... Oh, looks like Whiplash has a little damage as I was checking the tires. But every single tire so far is the soft tire. We normally don't see that in WEC because the race distances are just so long that... Whoa, Whiplash. Just diving through. Luckily, he made it through clean with no contact there. But just the fact that we are seeing the soft tire be used in a race distance over 58 laps does tell me that the tire degradation isn't going to be too big of a factor. We might see multiple sets of softs be used as Whiplash now jumps into the pits to repair that front wing damage. Yeah, so, and he's not going to change tires either. He's just going to get a little bit of fuel, make those repairs, and then he'll be back out onto the circuit. It makes sense not to switch to no set tires because you only got 2 laps on those tires. So it really just doesn't make any sense for you to swap them out. Unlike Formula 1, you are not required to switch tires every single time you're in the pits. You can come in for a splash and dash of fuel if you'd like. So, and we see drivers do that sometimes. They just come in for a little bit of fuel, then they just get right back out on the circuit. So it is going to be a pretty strong fight here. Illusion, though, losing a bit of time, actually a lot of time, to Viper just up the road. And now he's going to come into the clutches of King, one of the drivers from the Spectre Acura Racing team. So it'll be interesting to see how that battle develops. And then you got the 3 British Musketeers of AJP, ASJ, and Tallman making their GPL debuts earlier this season. Some of them made their debut in the LMP Master Series, but it is their Super Formula debut here. I don't remember exactly if Tallman is, but like we talked about earlier,
MayJP and ASJ both compete in the Drachlin Racing League, so that was their initial foray into Super Formula Racing and out of here at GPL. So here we go. It is going to be MayJP now, trying to rebuild up that gap. The multiple-time Sprint World Tour race winner, current Sprint World Tour championship leader, currently is almost best of the rest at this point, because we know how quick those top 5 are, but so far it is best of the rest. ASJ trying to get around the outside. The Fighting Falcon trying to turn on the afterburners and blaze his way on through. He'll get a better shot at it now, but it looked very, very likely that he's going to be able to punch on through. And not quite, nothing quite yet, as it is going to be ASJ really just closing it down. Maybe trying to stick it around the outside, and AJP does have the inside line of the hairpin, which is usually the optimal route, but not, but this time,
big slide from AJP.
Side by side coming down to Casino Straight, and this is going to be a pure drag race. It's going to might be just determine who's got the better setup for the straights. And MayJP with the inside line is going to hold on. ASJ taking a little bit of curbing there on the chicane. Sometimes that can net you a penalty if you're not careful enough, but I mean, just look how punchy F16 is. This might be the punchiest I've ever seen the Fighting Falcon.
Yeah, and these guys, they work really well together, but they are not doing so right now, as they are on different teams, and they know it, and they are fighting for position here. Both of drivers using a decent bit of overtake to try to just stay ahead of the other going into these corners. But wow, this is some good racing. So they weren't lying. I mostly got my opinion of this should be a good racing track from these two guys when they were practicing, telling me that when you start to battle, you can draw that battle out and keep it going, corner after corner after corner, which is something we love to see, because not every track is set up for that. Sometimes you got to kind of just wait for your moment. There's only a couple of overtaking opportunities on a lot of tracks, so you kind of got to wait for your time to come to you, stay in position for that opportunity. But here it looks like you just fight the whole time, and that's what I prefer to see, so that's nice.
Yeah, we all love to see it. Now they're going side by side again, coming into the chicane. MayJP cuts it a little tight. F16 goes on through, and is that going to be a penalty, though? I'm curious to see how the penalties will play out on this circuit, because as you know, in Gran Turismo, some penalties are stricter than others. The front three are just running away with it, though, at the moment, as it is Adaptive Inc. currently in P3, trying to chase down Nuka, the reigning champion, who's currently in P2. Whiteout is about a second ahead, but Illusion has just dropped off the pace compared to our top 3 here. The Norwegian driver not exactly getting to grips with the circuit as good as the other drivers in the top 3, but he is still going to be locked into a fierce battle with King, one of the veterans of GPL who took a sabbatical for a while. He founded the retirement home, as it is affectionately called, but he is back with Spectre Acura Racing, essentially the Fernando Alonso of GPL here, as he's going to chase down Lucia, try to get that P4. Except, unlike Fernando Alonso, his car isn't actually trying to shake itself to bits actively. Just take a look at the rest of the field. Something must happen with MayJP, because he has lost a significant amount of time to F16. Now he's going to be under pressure from the other high caliber racing driver, another one of his countrymen and good friends of Tallman.
Oh, MayJP into the pits now with front wing damage.
Oh,
so,
I can explain it.
Yeah, and checking on ASJ's car too, there's no damage on his, so it doesn't seem that, I mean, it still could have came from contact between the two cars. Sometimes only one car gets damaged, but a little less likely that we're not seeing any damage from ASJ's car. I wonder, though, how much time MayJP would have lost had he carried that damage a little farther, because there are different severities of damage, and when you see it just shows you that there is damage or is not damage. So it doesn't tell you how much damage, but there are actually levels of severity of damage to each of these components. and you don't really know what level of damage it is until you feel it going into a corner. It'll tell you real quick if it's not doing too well.
Yeah, it's not like the Formula 1 games or other simulators where like it will give you like a kind of a green, yellow, orange, red as like a damage indicator, just pretty much as a yes or no. So yeah, you'll definitely begin to feel it if it's really rough. Or I mean, if you have multiple points of damage, then at that point you really need to get it fixed. So there is effectively 7 different points of damage that you can have on a car in Gran Turismo. Effectively anyway. The main ones are the front and rear aero, so front wing, rear wing, and then you have each of these suspension parts for the front and the rear. And the worst one, and it's one that's really tough to damage, but we have seen it a couple times this season, is when you damage the powertrain. You lose a bunch of speed for quite a while. So like, your engine can get severely damaged. I've seen it happen a few times, but it's not as common as front or rear wing. Those are like the most common ones.
It's almost difficult to damage your engine on purpose even. You really have to hit it not only really, really hard, but in the right spot too. So if you see any damage to the power unit of any of these cars, we know there was some catastrophic level crash.
Yeah, I mean, you pretty much have to, like, the main situation I remember was actually, I think, back at Watkins Glen a couple of rounds back, where somebody, I forget who it was, but somebody actually just lost a rear end and slammed rear end first into the wall, and that absolutely killed their engine. So, although I think it was during practice, so it wasn't anything super terrible, but because there is no, I mean, obviously, because it's Gran Turismo, there's no real engine cap. As AJP has damage again, this time to the wall of champions. So, he's got front right suspension and front wing damage. So that's going to make his car really tough to turn. So, AJP just having a abysmal race. You want to know a driver that's not having an abysmal race, though? A driver who had a very rough qualifying is the LFO driver of Dylan Vassenberg. Currently up in the P8.
Yeah, when you're having a pretty anonymous race in your debut, that is a good sign, because especially on a track like this where there's been a bit of chaos, even despite there being some pretty decent gaps between these cars, we're still seeing a bit of chaos happening here. And so doing a good job just managing the car, doing his own race, not using too much overtake, still has well over 3/4 of his overtake left. I mean, there's still a lot of racing to go. He's actually using it a little bit right now, just as I say something about it. But yeah, it looks like his tires are holding up pretty well. And yeah, just doing a good job. Running his own race with pretty decent gaps both ahead and behind, although he does have a charging car as he touches the wall of champions there. You see what happens when we focus on someone and say they do a good job, not getting into any trouble. You know, we can take that one. That was on us. Sorry about that, Dylan, there.
Also, here's the thing too, right? He did exactly what MayJP did a moment earlier. Like, that is the exact same wall, the exact same way, just understeered and bop. They call that wall the wall of champions for a reason. So
absolutely. Yeah, it doesn't take much to do that. It's so easy to clip that wall and to get a little damage there. Any wall that has a name is scary, and you should try to avoid it.
Especially on this track, because pretty much a lot of the walls are just straight concrete.
Oh yeah.
So the first of the front runners are in. It is going to be a Viper, aka Adaptive Inc., getting his picture taken as he exits pit lane. And yeah, you kind of predicted it. Multiple sets of soft tires being used here. Now, crazy enough, this might just be a soft exclusive race. Is it likely? Not a chance. But it's a possibility. Because 2 sets of softs right now. The first set lasted about 12 laps. And I mean, so tire drag isn't exactly a huge issue on this track. The soft tires are the glass cannons of the bunch. They have a ton of grip, but that grip does not last super long. In a lot of series, it's almost you've seen as almost purely a qualifying tire. So we'll see if this gathers or garners a response from any of the other drivers in the top part, the front of the pack. Being Whiteout, being Nuko, maybe Illusion King as well. We'll see if any of them respond to the pit stop with a stop of their own. And the thing about the pit lane here is you don't even bother braking for this corner to go to the pits. You just go straight on. So.
Yeah, and it is a little risky. There's like a little mini chicane right at the end of the pit lane entry to where you have to do a slight lift, but these guys are not in the business of doing things slowly when there's an option to do it a little faster. And it is risky. I have seen many times people push a little too hard. They don't do that baby lift right at the end, and you can smack your car right into the little wall that's poking out just before the entry there. And it is kind of interesting to see Viper going into the pits this early because the rest of these soft runners still have about just over 50% tire remaining on their worst tires, and the balance is looking really good on the tires still. Although that doesn't always tell the whole story, because some tracks, even though the tire wear looks good, sometimes the pace is still dropping off, and sometimes it's the opposite, where the tire looks like it's completely worn but the pace still holds on for some reason. Every track and tire combo is a little different in that regard, so I am a little surprised to see him jump in the pits this early. And normally we do see the likes of Illusion like to extend his stint a bit anyways, so perhaps I'm thinking Viper might just have a different strategy in mind to these other front runners, where he's not allowing his tires to go into that drop-off phase. He's maybe sacrificing a little bit early off the top of this race distance so that he can have only optimal running on these tires. Maybe take advantage of a little interval, kind of a window where he can catch the cars ahead in a vulnerable spot in their stint.
Strategy in racing is often like play 4D chess. And we saw King actually make a response. He actually came into the pits last lap, so he'll come out side by side. We're talking about the drama coming out of the pit lane. King comes out right beside ASJ on the pit lane, and there we go. King has a bit of a snap there. Almost ended up in the wall. And the walls, especially through Sector 2, are so tight and so narrow. Or sorry, through Sector 1. So tight and so narrow that it can really just mess up your entire run if you're not too careful. And this is going to be a tricky situation, but so far King is going to start running away. He's on brand new soft tires, so multiple sets of softs are probably going to be the name of the game here today. We'll see if anybody else responds. Not this lap, so Whiteout and Nuko will continue on. There is a blue flag for... That's going to be kill switch as Fastenberg makes his way into the pits. He's going to be the first driver on the day to hop to a new medium. So he's going to jump on a medium tire. He'll come out just ahead of Viper. So we'll see how the mediums do, because as of now, he is the only medium runner. And Rogue has got damage again on the front right suspension and the front wing. And Major P's got it again as well. So that Wall of Champions really claiming everybody that it can remotely claim here today.
Yeah, it's not exactly good for your race when you have to take 4 or 5 pit stops, however many pit stops you may have to take, and it does look like May JP going past the pit lane entry, so he is going to decide to just carry this damage this time with him and kind of just eat the lap time losses here for a while, because sometimes, I mean, you're going to lose time either way when there's damage, whether you decide to lose time by fixing it, or you're going to lose time by staying out and carrying a damaged car with you. But this is the part where you got to try to do some quick math in your head and try to add up how much time you're losing per lap, and if the amount of time you're losing per lap adds up to a greater amount of time than taking a pit stop, then you just need to take a pit right now. And if it doesn't, then it is better to just stay out and eat those losses until your next natural pit window starts to occur.
Yeah, exactly that. So it's going to be real interesting here to see how the strategy plays out. Yeah, I mean, you gotta do quick maths. I know a lot of kids my age, myself included, back in the day were like, I specifically told my teacher that you don't need math to be a race car driver. Boy, was I wrong about that. There's so much math you gotta do, especially when it comes to how much time you're losing, your tire stints, how much grip percentage you're losing, how much damage you have if your name is MayJP. There's a lot of stuff that you're really just gonna struggle with if you make wrong calculations. So, but yeah, I think MayJP is just tired of going into pit, so he's just gonna try to walk it off in terms of the damage.
Yeah.
And I mean, that might just be the best call, really, because he could be way, way down the order. Rogue now is going to try to catch up to Killswitch. Killswitch is having a very tough time of it here today. Currently a lap down, even from P10, so he's pretty much been lapped by everybody but Vastenberg at the moment. So,
yeah, and I don't hold it against him either, because he was called in very, very last second, like literally probably 20 minutes before the race. He had absolutely no preparation.
Rogue is spun around! Rogue is around!
That was a big one. Oh, here comes Illusion.
Yeah, well,
oh my goodness. That was scary. He backed up right when Illusion was coming through as well. Illusion had to take a little bit of an avoiding action there. Luckily, nothing happened there, though. Well, of course, except for the Rogue, who we did see pretty spectacularly straight into the wall. And that's exactly what we were talking about, too. Any contact that could be made here will likely result in a car going into a wall, because they're just right there.
The walls do not play nice around CVG in the slightest, so you got to be really, really careful around this circuit. And I mean, I think probably going to be one of the biggest factors is just staying out of trouble, right? Because I mean, I know we kind of cursed him earlier when we were talking about it, but Vastenberg earlier, he made up some good positions just because he was just staying out of trouble. And around a track that the walls are pretty much super duper narrow, and there is no real margin for error, you're just going to be in a tough spot. Trying to go again, just going to be a tough spot if you aren't avoiding trouble. But you can have a rough qualifying and definitely make it up with trying to fix damage. And luckily for Dylan, both of his main competitors that are in this race, Rogue and Killswitch here, I mean, they both had a lot of damage and they both had to pit. Vastenberg, though, is going to be in a pretty decent spot in terms of just trying to fight for the top of kind of the midfield here. Well, again, not exactly the midfield, but he's going to be in a pretty decent spot for his first time racing in GPL and his first time racing here at this circuit. I mean, it's a brand new track. Not a lot of drivers are really used to it, and it's been a while since Vastenberg has really done anything super formula related. And it also really, like, it doesn't help his case. I mean, we got a battle between Whiplash and MayJP here. We got like, oh, and that's a big punt! Big punt there from MayJP, and he's got damage again. Oh! If the ghosting was not there, then MayJP's car would have just been absolutely shredded beyond belief.
Yeah, and so somehow not getting rear wing damage from that.
Yeah.
The MayJP. Still
Whiplash.
Carrying that front wing and front right suspension damage, though. Perhaps making his car not the most predictable into these corners. Hard to say exactly who's at fault for that, but just, you know, I'm sure it'll go to the stewards. I didn't get a great view of it. It didn't look too good for Whiplash, but then again, I don't want to judge because you never really know till you get the full replays. Although, oh no, he did apologize, so it does look like he's taking a bit of responsibility there. But yeah, even if it does look a certain way, I will advise people who are watching from the live stream to reserve judgment when we see an incident, because there's been many times where it looks like one person was 100% at fault, and then you just kind of look at all the angles in slow-mo, frame by frame, and it tells a very different story sometimes. But that one was probably what it looked like.
Yeah, and I mean, the thing is too, and actually now here's the thing. So Viper's going to come out ahead here between Whiteout, Nuco, and himself. So he's going to come out ahead of those two, but those two are going to be much fresher tires. So about 20 laps is about the stint, or about 19 to 20 laps is going to be the stint length on a set of softs for the most part. Like, that is on an extended stint. So, I mean, you actually could realistically run 3 sets of softs for this race. You realistically could. I mean, it's not a terribly unviable strategy. The softs, like, this is probably the track where we've seen softs used the most here around CVG. This is the most soft tires we've seen used probably in any singular session. But a few drivers opted for the mediums. Vastenberg and Killswitch on the mediums. Killswitch has got to get a rear wing fix again. So he's going to be in a bit of a rough spot. But yeah, most of the field running softs. Tall Man just pitted in. He's back on another set of softs. So he'll come back out at it. So
yeah, Killswitch sitting in his pit box. It looks like he might be retiring the car. Oh, no, now they're going. Maybe just taking a little break. Not too much to lose for however many laps down he was already. Might as well just take a little break. Do the old Fernando Alonso, however many rounds ago that was in F1, where he did like a retirement for half the race, and then they decided, man, you know what? It's a nice day to drive. Let's head back out there.
Yeah, let's just go ahead and just take a little bit of a breather. You know, drink some water. You know, just relax, catch your breath a bit. Just trying to kind of get that mental reset.
Do the Talladega Nights go and have a sandwich and make a phone call?
Yeah, pretty much. Just go ahead and, you know, get some Dino Nuggies while you're at it. Make sure you got some good old buffalo sauce. Ketchup is kind of overrated, so use buffalo sauce. It'll be a better option for you. But all jokes aside, and I'm sure somebody was thinking of making a joke about the only dinosaur on track is king, but I'm sure I couldn't be the only one who thought of that. But on track right now, everybody is spread out pretty far. Tall Man and Whiplash is going to be the closest battle here. Whiplash on older soft tires, but he does have experience on Tall Man, so it'll be high caliber at Foxhound battling it out for position. We'll see who can get this one here. Whiplash is going to try to go ahead and close the gap a bit. Looking pretty solid on his overtake usage at the moment. And Tall Man is probably going to try to get the most out of those brand new soft tires that he can as they make their way into Sector 2. And you're going to get a pretty good slipstream here. The wind is giving him a pretty good headwind coming down here, but it is going to be a really nasty tailwind coming through the hairpin. So we'll see how this will affect our drivers. We know wind has been a huge talking point this season. The wind on a lot of these tracks is not being ideal for the drivers, particularly at Spa and Catalunya. Whiplash is closing in the gap. He's going to burn a bit of overtake down to Casino Straight. Going to go wheel to wheel now with Tall Man. Tall Man does sell the inside line. And Tall Man's going to try to hold on to that position, but he can't keep it. Whiplash up
Clean
in the P7.
From the outside.
Very good pass, very good overtake. That puts the American driver up in the P7.
Yeah, and that was a good pass, and normally we would expect to see Whiplash kind of being the naturally pacier driver make his way through there, but of course Tall Man doing a good job of, you know, keeping Whiplash honest, not being able to just pass right through, because I do rate Tall Man very, very highly for his racecraft, particularly his defense. He is not an easy car to get past, even with a pace advantage.
Yeah, and Tall Man, he's got good sportsmanship as well. If he's being blue flagged, he just pulls right off the track. He hasn't really been involved in too many incidents over the course of the season, which is always a very good prospect for a lot of teams. You know, wanting a solid, reliable driver that doesn't get themselves in a lot of trouble. So we'll see what his prospects look like for next season, but I think he will probably be retained by Red Bull Adidas, his team that he races with in the Sprint World Tour. probably will remain as a Project Zero reserve as well. So it'll be interesting times to see what Tall Man can do. But in the meantime, he is currently P8 as Rogue is about to get passed up by P9 MayJP, who's back on the soft tires. He did run on to the mediums for a bit. Rogue's out front wing damage again, so he's gonna have to get that fixed. Into the pits, gets it just tweaked, and then back out he goes. They pretty much put some duct tape on it and said, there you go, you're good to go. And he's back out on circuit.
At this point, if we got a running tally going for the repair bill, it must be substantial. Whoever is financing this is crying right now. I am curious who is going to lead the Destructors Championship at the end of this round. So far, MayJP and Rogue having a very fierce battle to see who can rack up more damage.
Generational championship battle here for the Destructors between those two. But, I mean, it's... Actually, I don't know who would actually win the Destructors Championship, honestly, out of everybody so far. Definitely MayJP and Rogue scoring big here this round. I can say that for certain. I don't know who's done it more between the two, to be quite honest with you. But, like we did say very early on, this track was probably going to be one of the toughest tracks for that in that regard. I mean, Tokyo was kind of the same way, because Tokyo, that one's a real street circuit. So everything is super narrow. Runoffs are practically just another word in the dictionary. And everything goes really tight and narrow. This track is a bit more open than Tokyo Expressway, but nah, that's not a high bar, really.
Right. You know, I'm noticing some very interesting strategy stuff kind of playing out here, because of course we saw Viper, who's now in P1 leading this race, come into the pits very early on the same set of soft everyone else was using, and that really just kind of put him on the opposite interval pitting wise to everyone else in these top runners. And I think that despite not really creating himself a super huge kind of advantage or differential pace-wise or gap-wise in doing so, by offsetting that interval, he's giving himself a chance to win this race, rather than having to come through the field and get past Nuco and then get past Whiteout. That's going to be terribly difficult when you're on the exact same strategy as them. At least this way, when the race distance ends up kind of closing itself out and the distance settles, we will see which of these kind of pit intervals ends up being in front by the time that checkered flag waves, because right now he is in P1, but it is not a net P1. As we look at his tires, this is about the level his tires were when he pitted the first time. And the two drivers just behind are on pretty much brand new softs in their optimal window right now, and both of which are in the pit kind of window where if he pits, he will be behind them, kind of around where King is where he would come out of the pits. Probably still retaining P3 for the time being, but then it flips that order once again. So by the time Whiteout and Nuco's tires are ready to come into the pits again, Viper will be ready to take P1 again with better tires. So I think it's all kind of a matter of who's going to be in front when the laps run out, obviously. And as you know, there he goes into the pits, of course. So I'm just curious which interval will win out here, because the strategy is similar, just the timing is different.
Yeah, we'll just have to see here. Who cares what tire is going to come out on it? Maybe another set of softs. Yeah, so it's another set of soft tires here for the Maltese driver. So he's going to come out. Yeah, he's going to come out. Oh, he's coming out right around. Well, yeah, because he pitted in about the same time. Because he didn't go super long into the stint last time compared to everybody else, and he almost got some damage right there. He comes out just out of MayJP, which would have been Overlap's car anyway. So he comes out there. We'll see where everybody else is at in terms of any battles potentially happening. everybody's now just like, it's kind of like what we talked about not too long ago. It's kind of, each race really has its three parts. You got the high intensity beginning, the kind of mellowed out middle part, and then it gets spicy again right at the end. So, I mean, we probably gonna see that here again at CVG. But here's the thing though. Do you think Whiteout or Nuco are going to jump onto a set of mediums to maybe try to counteract what Viper's doing on his stint? I don't know. It's a tough one.
That would be quite clever. And I'm also, it kind of depends on, I guess, the remaining distance by the time they come into the pits again. But how it's going so far, if the stint distances are viable to just pick either, I would continue using the soft tire because Nuco and Whiteout are using a lot more of their soft tire than Viper is. Viper's coming into the pits a bit early on both of these stints, kind of cutting off that drop-off phase so he only gets optimal running. But Whiteout, who did get a bit into the grass actually on that exit there, no damage, no wall contact it looks like, so he got away with one there. But it does look like Whiteout and Nuco are willing to take these tires a bit farther into the stint, into that drop-off phase, because it doesn't seem like it's too bad of a drop-off here.
Yeah, not really. I mean, tire degradation, I mean, if you just think about, like, not exactly the last round, but a couple of rounds ago when we went to Watkins Glen and Barcelona, I mean, those tracks were insane for tire wear. It's the only tracks on the calendar where we'd probably see the hard tires being brought into play. But it looks like Whiteout is starting to build out that gap to Nuco, trying to retain his lead in the Drivers' Championship. As this is right now, I know we haven't actually talked about the standings here so far. I mean, we're about at the halfway point of the season. So we can talk about that real quick as everything is kind of really settled down for the most part. But with that being said, I'm going to be really curious to see how the rest of the season does play out. But right now, in the driver standings, as it says right now, Whiteout does lead by only 2 points, though, to Illusion. So only 2 points separate up. That gap is going to increase. Well, current Illusion kind of in a no man's land, really, when it comes to just where he's at compared to everybody else in his immediate competition bracket. Viper, though, has some chance to really pick up some points. He's currently in third. Nuco's currently in fourth, so the reigning champion not exactly having the start to the season that he would have wanted. And then Alex currently in P5, King P6, Whiplash P7, Comer P8. So that's pretty much your top 8 in the championship. With that being said, Comer only did 1 round, so he'll probably continue to kind of drop down the order. He's starting with MayJP in P9 at the moment for the Drivers' Championship, which ironically enough, MayJP is currently P9 on the road as well. So, take a look at the constructor standings here in WEC. XOMR does have a pretty healthy advantage, but as it says right now, there is going to be a somewhat of a decent chunk taken out there by the Spectre Acura Racing team. And then everybody else is just trying to fight for the last remaining spots, honestly. Because XO and Spectre Acura Racing, very strong teams, probably got some of the strongest lineups on the grid, and right now they are currently dominating the championship.
Yeah, and Spectre looking like they're in a really good position in the constructors for this particular race as it is going so far. EXO being plagued with a little bit of reliability from an attendance standpoint, and that is going to pay dividends if you're in Spectre Acura.
So let's see what happened here. I think that
I did
was
see
just
a sorry.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna go look into. I think that was just accidental impeding there from Vastenburg. I mean, it's a narrow part of the track, so it didn't really hurt MayJP that much. Oh, it's probably still gonna go and be investigated, and it may result in a penalty for Vastenburg, but it's a tough part of the track. We've already seen a few come-togethers there just in the span of today. So, once again, still very much possible that we could see some improvement from some of these drivers, but it is currently lap 31 out of 58 for our lead car. And there's, at the moment, there is only 6 cars on the lead lap at the moment. Actually, yeah, so 6 cars on the lead lap. ASJ will be back on the lead lap once he gets through. So, quite a few drivers already about a lap down at this point. I mean, it's such a stacked field as well for GPL. You got a bunch of former champions coming back. Whiteout came back. Viper came back. Comer came out of retirement for a single race and then despawned. And then you got King as well, a veteran of the league. So a lot of veteran drivers coming back in and kind of reshuffling the deck. Reshuffling the order quite a bit. So it's already a very stacked season of GPL. So, but we have Tallman and Whiplash going at it again. So we'll see who's going to win out on this battle. Whiplash is on brand new tires compared to Tallman, so this could be a strong battle, but Tallman now has hardly any overtake, so he's at a huge disadvantage here. Whiplash is going to try to think about the outside, trying to gain the position, trying to get a P7. We're going to ride on board now with the car currently sitting at P8. The Starlight designed sponsored Foxhound Speed Group car, trying to make his way through, but he just doesn't quite have the real estate yet. He's got to just use the slipstream. Into the chicane they go, but now here's the part where you can really make a very solid overtake, being that hairpin is going to be Tallman on the defense. Whiplash going to try to stick the inside, but he doesn't. You have to try to get him to here down through Casino. He's going to close in the gap, closing in, closing in, closing in. Trying to stick it around the outside. Is this going to work in his favor? It's going to be a drag race to the chicane. Tallman is ahead. Is it going to be a switchback? Bit of contact? No, no switchback there for Tallman or Whiplash. Tallman holds on to that P7, but the question is for how long. We're already seeing potential, and Tallman overshoots the braking zone, and Whiplash up in the P7. Good defense from Tallman, but unfortunately, every defense has to show cracks at some point.
Yeah, definitely, and there's only so much defense you can put up against a driver who is perhaps just a bit faster, and when the tires are brand new soft tires, that also doesn't help too much.
Yeah, so there's only so much you could really do at this point, so yeah, it's tough, but it is definitely something that just tends to happen at points.
Yeah, well, it does seem we're in a bit of a kind of a pit window here, because when I'm looking up and down the grid, a lot of these guys' tires are either in really good shape or really bad shape, and so I'm expecting to see a handful more people decide to take pit stops within the next 2-3 laps, and it is interesting to see because there are some big differences in the levels of tire remaining on these drivers. We might see some big differences in pace as well as some of these drivers close in on each other, although the gaps do seem pretty decent so far, so we might not see that manifest in a wheel-to-wheel sense, but it is still occurring nonetheless up and down the field.
Yeah, the field is really just kind of spread out quite a bit here. We'll see if there's going to be any battles happening here. I think everybody's just kind of in that phase of just sticking with it and just kind of trying to bring the car home and try to. This one's going to be won over strategy, really, because I think with Viper going ahead and making that pit stop very early on about lap 12, I think that kind of, it was kind of the first domino of a domino effect that really just started to trickle down and just show all the different levels of strategy that are going to be in effect here. And this might, because I mean, we've seen some tracks where they're really strategy heavy and other tracks where they're really pace heavy. Monza really felt like it was a pace heavy track, this track seems like it's going to be pretty strategy heavy for the remainder of it. So lap 35 out of 58 on the day, and as of right now it is still Whiteout leading the Grand Prix ahead of Nuco and Viper, aka Adaptive Inc., but pretty solid gaps forming between the three of them.
Very different levels of overtake used up and down the grid, as well as we see some people falling on desperate times early in the race happen to burn quite a bit more than others. Some people just running their own race, conserving as much as they can. Drivers like ASJ probably running his own race is an understatement for him, as he has over 30 seconds ahead and behind is his gaps. So he can literally do whatever he wants here. He has about 2 pit stops margin ahead and behind him, so he's literally just running his own race all by himself out here. There in P6, we got Illusion, who got caught by King. Now King is hustling him for P4 all the way down. Illusion trying to break the toe on the overtake as we're going towards the Wall of Champions. Illusion managing to keep his car just ahead of King's, not allowing a door to be opened for a potential overtake there. King staying just within striking distance, though. If a door does open up, King is right there to take a lunge, but no door is open thus far. King on the much better tire as well. Oh. Illusion with more overtake, though.
King had a bit of a snap there coming out of the corner.
And they're approaching traffic ahead. Lap Traffic, who is fighting each other as well, one of which is a teammate, so very awkward, difficult situation to manage, especially if you're the blue flag drivers who are fighting each other. And that also allows May JP to slip right by Tallman there. Kind of unfortunate for their battle to be disrupted like that, but it's good that they got out of the way for the lead lap battle. And Tallman back ahead now with the switchback from AJP. Now they're wheel to wheel.
Yeah, they're going to continue to try to fight it out here down the casino straight. Who's going to go to get this battle? Who's going to get the victory in this battle here? AJP does have the inside line, but we have seen that the outside line could work out pretty well. Tallman rides the curb, goes rally crossing a bit. And unfortunately, that just ebbs enough speed away for AJP to get back. But they're already going side by side again. Deep on the brakes for Tallman. Contact! A little bit of contact. Tallman went a bit too deep on the brakes. AJP nowhere really to go. And that was a optimistic move from Tallman. But it does keep him in position for now. But we talked about it earlier. One of the talking points is that overtake, and AJP certainly got a lot more of it. So, it actually now come to think of it, this actually really does play well into the hands of Spectre Acura Racing, because with AJP down at P9, King is in he's almost in P4. He's chasing down Illusion now for position, trying to send it one way, trying to send it the other around the outside. A bit of a snap there from King, bit of contact, and he is fighting to keep that Spectre facing in the right direction. But I was going to say, and I mean, this actually could result in King actually taking the lead here, or King trying to get the lead in the Constructors' Championship for his team. Illusion in the pits though. He is going to go ahead and shed those soft tires. What tires is he going to put on? I think it's probably going to be another set of softs, because you got about, or softs are medium, I think it's softs that were just equipped to that XO. So this could be interesting to see, but yeah, it's another set of soft tires for him, so he's going to try to probably carry these to the end. About 21 laps left to go in this Grand Prix. He'll probably try to carry these all the way to the finish. But speaking of, Tallman and AJP still going out of here, back for P8. Good battles here, up and down the field when we do get battles. They have been really red hot. And that's the thing, like, it's hard to overtake on these close tracks. But the way that CVG kind of flows, it just leads to really good switchback opportunities.
Yeah, exactly. It's always good that when one corner in one direction very quickly leads to the next corner in the other direction. The inside becomes the outside, vice versa. It does open up some really good overtaking opportunities throughout the lap, which we always love to see. And it's also fun from the driver's perspective too. You want to be able to know that you can fight back for a position and just continue it, and that it's more so based on actual driver skill who wins out a fight rather than just kind of car and circumstance combination being better for one. So we did see some really good battles there. When the field actually does close up enough to provide some battles, the battles are really good here so far. Now it does look like King and Illusion are also on very kind of opposite intervals now. King had the better tire throughout that battle up until now, where now Illusion's on the brand new tire. King now starting to approach the pit window. He's not quite there yet. He'll be able to go for a little while longer, but tires no longer optimal, I would say, for King. And before Illusion went into the pits, I do believe he cost King a decent amount of time. And so that'll help him strategically, as the two race leaders are now in the pits, promoting Viper back up to the net lead of this race. So once again, flip-flopping the race lead there. Now, all that we really need to know is by the end of the race, is that a net P1 or is it a temporary P1?
That's a tough one, honestly. I don't really know. I mean, two brand new tires.
Still in the window of the pit window right now. If he were to pit, he would be behind Whiteout and Illusion again, as it currently sits.
You mean Whiteout and Nuco?
Yes, Whiteout and Nuco, that is what I meant. And they're also not only still within that range, but they are on brand new tires now. So once those get warmed up, I don't expect Viper to be able to increase the gap in the lead from here.
Now, here's a really unsensical thought, right? Or it's not even remotely sensible, but depending on the drop-off, we know that the drop-off isn't super heavy, but what if in somehow, some way, well, never mind, I'm not even gonna entertain the hypothetical. He just goes into the pit. So I was gonna say, what if he just stays out? But yeah, he decided that was not gonna happen. I mean, that was probably the best course of action.
The commentary curses now.
I don't know that I'd even call that a commentator's curse. That's just a, don't even think about it. That's a preemptive commentator, like, don't even think about it moment there. But yeah, I think that's
preemptive strike.
That was probably the best call for Viper, honestly. That probably really was. Because he's going to come out just ahead of his teammate, who probably won't give him too much of a hard time. So he'll probably let his teammate on through. And he does. And actually has lap traffic too, so he will let his teammate on through. But in the meantime, it is going to be a really, really fun time to see who comes out on top of this. But they're all brand new tires now. Overtake is going to be the big thing. Whiteout has the biggest disadvantage when it comes to that overtake usage. Nuco and Adaptive Inc. Adaptive Inc. is a little bit better, but it's very marginal. Very, very marginal indeed. So, and now everybody's pretty much got a massive gap here.
And so the pitting early thing for Viper would have worked out had he been able to have really strong tires at the same time that the two ahead of him have really weak tires right at the end of the race. But I think Viper noticed what I was starting to notice, is that the gap just wasn't big enough, and the state of his tires also weren't good enough to increase the gap from there. By the time he was ready to pit again, he was going to end up back in this position either way. So he kind of hurt himself a little bit, because now he came back out and is basically on the exact same pit interval as the two drivers ahead of him again, with no real tire advantage. By the time they reach the end of this race distance, they'll all be on the same kind of level of tire wear. And so that gamble, it was just probably a shot in the dark to see if it ends up giving him a good advantage. It didn't end up working out, so now if Viper wants to win this race or even just get P2 instead of P3, he's going to have to overtake on the track, eliminate over 4 seconds worth of gap, and then make the overtake on track. And that's just to get P2, and then there's an additional 4 seconds ahead of him to reach the race lead of Whiteout.
Yeah, but the thing is that Whiteout's using a pretty good amount of overtake compared to his rivals just behind, so I think this is going to be a bit of a tough one here, but it's still going to be a massive points haul for Spectre Echo Racing. Both SARs finishing ahead of both EXO cars by a good margin too. Whiteout is ahead by quite a bit. That's going to bolster his championship lead. That championship lead was at only 2 points earlier, but now it's going to increase pretty drastically if things finish the way they are. But even though King is likely going to finish behind because he's just going to come right down into the pits, his tires were looking super great. But MayJP is still pretty far down there. He's still down to P8. Tallman might be pressuring him to try to even drop it down to P9. So this really could go Acura's way in terms of the Constructors battle, because that battle is going to be probably red hot right until the line of the championship. So this is going to be a really good battle to watch throughout the season. We are pretty much now halfway through the season at this stage, and these battles are only going to get more intense as the season goes on. So this could be really, really crucial here. And I mean, Tallman might just find himself as a unintentional wildcard factor into the Constructors Championship battle here if they can try to get past MayJP. It will be the first points on the board in the Constructors for High Caliber, which they'd be getting a pretty healthy amount of points. F16, P6 by a pretty good margin. He just pitted in for brand new tires, so he'll probably go to the end. And then you got Tallman fighting for P8, trying to fight for what might be one of his best results in WEC. So good stuff that we're seeing from all these guys here, and you'll love to see it. He's gonna potentially try to make a move, and actually I feel like I misspoke about High Caliber. Let me take a look. So correction, no, this is not gonna be High Caliber's first points in the Constructors Championship. I don't know where I pulled that statistic from. They're currently P4, but they may try to close in the gap to Toyota. Toyota isn't super far ahead of them. P4 to Constructors is probably going to be the best that they can hope to achieve this season, just without Stacks, Foxhound, Spectre, and XOR. But with that being said, we're still only about halfway through the season, so things could really just get really intense here for the Constructors.
Oh yeah, definitely, and especially too when the field is like this, the pressure is on even when you're not directly a championship protagonist, because every car can affect every other car when every single point matters. And so even if you yourself aren't fighting for anything in particular, every single driver on this grid is playing a role in every other driver's championship through the rest of this season. And that does put a little bit of pressure on you to perform, even just to maybe even perform in a way that doesn't affect someone else in a negative way, because it's all to play for, and this means a lot to these guys. This is some high-level competition, and the accolades for winning here is among the greatest accolades you can get in Gran Turismo.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's going to be really interesting, right, just in terms of the championships, because some illustrious names have won the championships. I mean, Whiteout's multi-time champion, Nuko, reigning champion, Lucian has been right in the hunt for championships. And so, but also, we're at the point now, and which is something that is kind of crazy to say in the context of sim racing, because it's not usually common in the sim racing world, but even though they're not immediately fighting for podiums here in WEC, we do have the next generation of Super Formula GPL drivers pretty much right here. MayJP, Tallman, ASJ, they're all pretty young, they're all young guns, pretty much right at the tail end of high school for a lot of them. Some are in college now, but still, we got a bunch of young guns who are going to be probably a GPL for quite some time, as long as they continue the sim race. So we might have some future champions in the race already, and they may get added to the illustrious names who have won titles, like your Whiteout, like your Nuco, Lusion, King, etc., etc. So, with that all being said, we are probably one of the best seasons that GPL has ever had, just in terms of the drivers, the returning drivers, the new drivers. I mean, MadeJP, even though, yeah, he's had a bit of a tumultuous time in WEC for the most part, if you go just across to SWT, he has been dominating over in SWT, just putting in solid performances left, right, and center, and leading the Drivers' Championship. He might be one of the first rookie champions in quite some time.
Yeah, definitely been the class of the field over there, and it is hard to remember that he really is a rookie. Like, a lot of these guys we call rookies because they're new into this particular league, but they've been racing in this game for years in other leagues or whatever. And so sometimes rookie is more so just a title than an actual thing you are, but MadeJP is a true rookie, where he's pretty new at everything sim racing, especially at a competitive level like this, and it can be easy to forget with how quickly he's progressing, and that goes for all of these the three British guys that we're mentioning here, but MadeJP in particular, just because of that SWT spotlight he has on him, showcasing his progress so far, and if he continues to progress at that rate, we can definitely see him at the sharp end of the WEC grid within a season or two, and I wouldn't be too shocked to see it. But races like this also demonstrate that he is still a rookie.
Yeah, I mean, ASJ actually getting in front of Nuco there, so slightly impeding the reigning champion, and trying to get a bit of a slipstream off of him as well, so I wondered how this is going to play into things. So Whiteout's just about out of overtake. Nuco could very well win this. Here he's in a good spot too. So, I mean, just taking a look at the race results here, I don't think... Yeah, weirdly enough, Nuco has actually not won a race so far this season. So the reigning champion has yet to win a Grand Prix here. And I mean, unless it makes a mistake like that where it slightly taps one of the walls, he might have a good shot of winning here today. I mean, he's still got a bit of a gap to Whiteout he's got to try to make up, and that didn't help with the little scrapes against the wall. Viper is a bit far back, so he probably will add to his win tally this season, or at least in this round. Other rounds, maybe, especially because we have a sprint in the next round at Traw Mountain when we go stateside again. But in the meantime, it looks like that win tally is going to stay at 1 for the season so far. But there's still a good amount of rounds left to go to really try to make this championship hyper competitive. It already is extremely competitive, but so far it has been mostly the Acuras and the Extra cars kind of taking the cake here. Taking a look at the remaining schedule, we do have 4 more rounds left to go after today. So 9 races total, because we do have CVG again next week for the Sprint World Tour. We go to Trial Mountain Reverse for the final sprint race of the season. And then Suzuka, D-Force, and Yas Marina to round out the championship. So with all that being said and done, we do have some really, really good racing coming up here. Nuco kind of losing a bit of time to both the Whiteout and the Viper here, so the podium might not be set in stone as we originally thought it might be.
Yeah, and as well, it does look like Nuco for a while there was the paciest man on the field, but having cut his lead down quite a bit, over a second he cut into that lead of Whiteout, but now Whiteout seems to be kind of just maintaining and holding the lead, slightly increasing it again. And So it makes me wonder if he was holding a bit of pace, managing his car, or if Nuco really is cutting into that gap in a way that Whiteout should be concerned about here, as he actually just completes the overtake usage. So Whiteout now has 0 overtake remaining. Nuco has a bit left, about 1/8 of a tank of his overtake remaining.
Yeah, and actually,
he lost a second from getting past lap traffic.
Something though too is I was actually going to talk about King and Lucian fighting it out, but King's got damage. I think he hit that wall that pretty much everybody and their brother's been hitting here on this track, where he just loses about a second a lap due to that damage on the front right and the front wing damage. So bit of damage there for King. So that'll kind of neutralize this battle. He's got to come to the pits to fix that.
Into the pits. Yeah, that kind of kills his chances of getting P4 off of Illusion then.
He'll still stay ahead of F16 though, but that is gonna do some damage limitation to Illusion now. King might try to go for the fastest lap though, because he did just bolt on a new set of softs to go to the end of this one. But yeah, actually, surprisingly enough, it was a pretty much, for the most part, for all of our lead drivers, as a full soft race. But looking at something now, Viper is actually not too far behind Nuco and Whiteout. I mean, you can still see him. I mean, still about 3.5 seconds between them. And Whiteout is really just trying to eke out that gap, but he doesn't have the overtake to play with, really. So
yeah, about 1/8 as well for Viper here, and it looks like, yeah, relative to the top 3, Viper actually is the fastest of the 3 of them, because Nuco's slightly cutting into that lead of Whiteout, but at the same time, Viper is cutting into the gap to Nuco, so that means that he's faster than both of them at the moment. But with only 7 laps remaining, it doesn't look like the rate that he's closing that is gonna be enough to make up any positions. I doubt we'll even get a battle for it at the rate that he's closing, but so far, Adaptive Inc., aka Viper, fastest car on the track at the moment.
This could just make things really, really intense here for the remainder of the Grand Prix. 8 laps to go here at CVG. So not a whole lot of time left to go here in the first ever Canadian Grand Prix ever held in the Grand Prestige League. There was a Canadian track before, but Super Formula and Rally don't exactly mix super well, so we didn't obviously go there. But now that we have a Canadian track on the calendar, Schulte does have a home track here next week, so that'll be fun to watch. We'll see how the Canadian driver does in SWT. But in the meantime, it is still a fight for the front. Everybody else is pretty well spread out here at the moment. We did have Killswitch retire early on, so we are down to 11 drivers on the racing circuit, and it is still going to be a really hard fought battle here. It's just going to come down to pretty much just like a glorified time trial battle between the top 3 here, just trying to lap quicker than the car ahead and really start trying to knock the time down and down and down, trying to close in that gap. And it looks like Nuco is catching up to Whiteout, but is it by enough? It's currently, like, based on lap 51, it's about 0.2 of a second, about a 1/10 and a half, probably closer to for Nuco on the Whiteout. We'll see what the time difference is on this lap here. So comparing it now as they make their way to the line. So a 1:19.2. So now it's about little under 0.3 of a second. But is that enough of a margin to close here in about 6 laps? Is that enough of a margin, or does that need to be increased?
Yeah, so Nuco the fastest now out of the top 3 here. Viper actually falling back a little bit might have something to do with the fact that he had to clear some lap traffic as well, so I won't hold it entirely against him. But he is dropping back a little bit now, so Viper not looking like he's going to be too big of a factor. Something else that's kind of unusual, it doesn't seem to be like a big factor in the race here, but it's a little unusual to see race fuel differences as big as we're seeing between these top three. Whiteout having very little fuel remaining, and with the amount of laps he has to do, that might actually be a concern. He might just make this race distance if he makes it. Nuko, just now his fuel just went to red, and I think he should have enough remaining. Viper behind them will definitely have enough fuel. I have never seen this much fuel on board a car this late in a race, though. He definitely probably took more fuel at some point when he was in the pits. But usually, especially the top guys, are so pace sensitive because they're all so fast. Any tiny little difference in pace will make a big difference between these top guys. That usually they don't want any additional fuel at all. A single drop of extra fuel is weighing your car a little more, taking a little more time off your lap times, and even just that difference they care about, because it will add up when you're lapping this close to each other in lap times. Some interesting stuff. Another thing to note too, that has provided a huge challenge for these guys, as if it wasn't already challenging enough. We thought it was probably a pretty good wind direction based on most of these corners going in one direction. The wind was a headwind for most of them. The only exception being the most difficult corner on the track that leads right into the wall of champions was a tailwind, and that was catching everyone out at first. The wind does seem to have shifted about 90 degrees into a direction that is probably a little more favorable for that particular corner. But imagine, this is catching you out lap after lap with the tailwind through that corner. You finally adjust your braking and steering points and your whole technique to adapt to the wind direction so you're not crashing there every lap, and then the wind direction just completely changes on you.
Yeah, and I mean, wind has been, I mean, it's probably one of the biggest talking points, surprisingly enough, just throughout the season, just because the wind has been just been catching everybody off guard. Everybody, almost every single round, with the exception of Monza, has really just been complaining about that wind. I mean, Spa, Barcelona, Watkins, everybody was hating the wind every single round. This round was no exception. So the wind direction really does play a huge factor, especially in cars as aerodynamically efficient and dependent as the Super Formula cars that we race here. This SF23 chassis is such a tough one when it comes to sudden changes of direction, because it's asymmetrical in its construction as well. I'm sure you know this, B23, from designing liveries, that the winglets over the, I think it's the right side, the winglet over the right side pod is bigger than the left side, but there's also an extra vent on that right side as well, so they're not exactly symmetrical, which can also throw off the aerodynamic balance, as it is down to the final 3 laps of the Canadian Grand Prix. The gap inching closer and closer, now under 2 seconds.
Yeah, throws off not only the aero, but my intense OCD when I have to design around that area. I like symmetry in that, you know, and balance. So that is, it's very off-putting to design around that area. Yeah, the gap's still coming down though. Now we were just dipped below 2 seconds, the gap between P2 and P1 there for just a moment. It does look to me though a little bit like Whiteout is kind of managing the pace of his car. He probably has got to manage his fuel levels here too. He might accidentally throw this race away by having over-revved his car a little bit throughout this race distance. I'm going to expect, if you look at the bottom of the screen, if we're looking at Whiteout, and you can see what gear he's in, you can see the revs. If you watch Whiteout now, he's very acutely aware that he might run out of fuel here. So he'll be short shifting for the rest of this race distance. Instead of revving it all the way up and even past the limiter range that you see there, he will be probably shifting closer to about 75-80% revs rather than beyond 100% like we normally see. And that will save a bit of fuel. It actually saves a pretty substantial amount of fuel if you do that for a handful of laps.
Yeah, so we'll see here how this one comes to a head, but it's only about a lap and a half left to go now. And that gap is inching now. It is almost... Well, it's not that big of a gap, though. It's still only 2/10, though. But, oh! Nuke got a big snap there. He is lucky that he did not sustain any damage there. So that's going to give Whiteout a bit of extra breathing room. But that fuel usage is going to be such a tricky thing. Now, here's a problem for Whiteout. He's got a Toyota behind him chasing him down, which we've known for several laps. But he's got a lapped Toyota ahead of him. Now,
oh boy.
And how will this play out? Because Whiteout can't go full push to try to get past him. So by the time he catches up to Rogue, he's going to be pretty much right there in that chicane. But no, not even. So
yeah, because legally speaking, from like a regulatory standpoint, this should be a non-factor. But of course, when you see two cars in the same livery in front and behind you, we know the motivations for these drivers. We know where the loyalties lie as well. And no, he just lets him right past, which is the right thing to do. So good on Rogue for doing so, not affecting the championship in a way that would be unsportsmanlike. But you know, when it's the heat of the moment, you never quite know how it's going to play out until it plays out, and, you know, it's competition. But Rogue doing the right thing and moving on by not incurring any risk of penalty there by doing so.
Yeah, so it is the final lap of the Canadian Grand Prix now, and there was an attempt, but Nuko just couldn't quite get it done here. He made some mistakes in the late stages now. And he's going to try to run as close as he can. But Whiteout on next to no fuel at all. He's going to try to make it to the line here. It's pretty much the last effort from Nuko, but it wasn't quite enough. So this is going to result in Whiteout taking another win here this season and increasing his championship lead. And for the first time, Nuko wins.
He's out of fuel.
Oh, he's out of fuel. Wait a minute. It's going to come to the line, but it's a 1 second penalty anyway. Nuko doesn't quite get it. But it is going to be Whiteout winning the first ever Canadian Grand Prix in GPL history. And oh boy, that could have went very, very wrong.
He's lucky. It's a pretty short run from that final chicane to the finish line, because I do believe he was actually completely out of fuel. We saw Nuko storming up behind, but with that 1 second penalty looming, even if he managed to just pip him across the line for that race win, it all probably would have undone itself with that little track limit penalty there.
Yeah, that was close there, but it is going to be, last two across the line will be Lujan and King. Nuko just couldn't quite get it done, but actually Vastenberg will be the last one across the line. He made up 2 positions, though, on his in-season debut, so for a driver who didn't do a lot of practice coming in, and a driver who was a pretty late addition to the LFO roster, I mean, a P10 out to qualify P12, not bad, honestly, for your first time. In the top 10, yeah, I mean, he stayed out of trouble. He's pretty much kept his car in one piece long enough to stay ahead of Rogue and out-survive Kill Switch. So that is going to be the end of the race here. Come across the line, 2 laps down, but Whiteout will take victory here. Once again, he will extend that championship lead, and Whiteout is your race winner for Spectre Acura Racing. And we're going to go through our results here before we wrap things up. So, as it sits here right at the end, it is going to be Whiteout ahead of Nuko, Adaptive Inc., Lujan, King, ASJ, F16, Whiplash, and May JP rounding out the field, with Adaptive Inc. getting the fastest lap of the race. Only 5 drivers finishing on the lead lap, which is a pretty crazy statement for this race, but a new track makes things pretty well difficult. And then taking a look at the rest of it, it is going to be Tallman, the debutee of Vastenberg, Rogue, and Killswitch rounding out the field here today. So that's going to go ahead and wrap things up here at round 6 of the World Elite Championship for Season 7 at GPL. What a race it was. And honestly, when we did get battles on circuit, they were very, very good.
Yeah, absolutely. The battles were pretty far and few between for this round, but like you said, when they happened, they were electric. Continuing for multiple corners straight, not just a one and done sort of overtake and go on your way type of battles. These were real battles, and it was very fun to see. I'm expecting to see a lot more of that in SWT as well, and I do think that the kind of just track length being kind of short also contributed to seeing so many more lapped cars this track, but you know, lap traffic also can play an interesting role. It's unfortunate if they end up doing so, but it can provide some entertainment and bogeys there on the track. And yeah, and just before I let you guys go, I will remind you just one last time, do remember, like and subscribe this YouTube channel if you have not done so already, and go ahead and give us a follow over at Instagram at Grand Prestige League, where we will keep you up to date on everything Grand Prestige League and Super Formula Racing. We will be back here next week, where I will be on the track myself in Canada, and I am looking forward to it.
Yeah, so once again, go ahead and turn on those post notifications after you've liked and subscribed so you don't miss any of the action here. Sprint World Tour will come back here next week for their race as well. It'll be B23. He won't be here in the booth. He'll be on the track going at and competing in the XO Red P-Day machine. So get ready for some of that amazing action. But in the meantime, we're going to have to go ahead and say goodbye for now. Remember, use promo code GPL at w.gg for a 10% discount. Stay hydrated. And on behalf of GPL and on behalf of B23, my name is Patrick Coleman, a.k.a. Rekkus, and we have been your host and commentator for today's Grand Prix. See you guys next time. Have a good night.